And you're live. Good night.
Hey everybody, welcome to JLJ Media and the Loki Aftershow, where we're breaking down every episode of Loki season 2, streaming every Thursday night on Disney Plus. I am your humble and least talented member of this panel, Frank Moran. Uh, our third member, Kim McAndrew, is busy giving all the tricks and treats to all the neighborhood kids. I have a feeling she's one of those full bar kind of houses that you want to stop at. But joining me, as always, the Batman to my Robin, John Dunphy.
Hello, it's great to be here with you on Halloween. I've got my Nightmare Before Christmas cups, and I've got
Oh,
my see a little Jack Skellington, and I've got some Halloween candy next to me. So I'm ready to get cozy with you and talk about Loki. Let's do it.
I love it. I was bummed I could only find like a modern Pizza Hut background. It does not quite accompany the classic chandelier hat, so I had to make do. My apologies. My
Hey,
apologies.
I think it looks great. I love the pizza background actually.
But folks, the YouTube stream is up and running, so feel free to hop in the chat there and share your thoughts, speculations, theories, anything you want. Restaurant tips from John Dunphy. He will answer any and all of those. The super
Yes.
chat is enabled. So if you feel so inclined to share a super chat, that is always much appreciated. Everybody at JLG Media truly appreciates that. But before we dive into the full episode breakdown, John Dunphy, what did you think overall?
I liked this episode. I think for me so far this season, episode 3 was the one that I like least enjoyed. And you know me, I'm always a big cheerleader, so like I still enjoyed it, but like episode 3 for me was the weakest. I did think that this one like kind of brought it up again. It felt like we got a lot of questions answered from earlier in the season, like who was on the other end of that ringing phone that Loki heard, like in that hallway by the elevator right before he saw Sylvie, and we found out who pruned Loki from early on in the season, things like that. Like I like that we got some questions answered. Um, and like overall performances, like Victor Timely's performance in this didn't bother me as much as episode 3. I felt like, but obviously the way everything ended left a lot of questions about where we go next. So overall, I enjoyed the episode. I'm excited to get into it more with you, a little bit more in detail.
This episode's titled Heart of the TVA. And for me, I'm wondering, you know, I'm wondering if this show has a rich, robust pulse. I don't know.
Mm,
There's just parts of me that just felt like some of the teasing mysteries they set up in the first episode, where you get answers for in this episode, were just like, well, yeah, but I already thought that. So
mm,
okay, that really, I was hoping like that they would zig where I thought they were going to zag or
yeah.
whatever. It
Okay.
was just because the Loki pruning himself, like, man, I felt like that was the most obvious choice because they don't show that who it's doing. So it's like clearly it's got to be him pruning himself. That would be make the most sense. So getting
Right.
that, I was just like, okay, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Oh,
I know what you mean because there was a point where I was thinking, knowing who was in the TVA at the time, and like we can see that now, like these paths are intersecting. Like what we saw Loki when he was, you know, uh, what was it? He was like traveling back and forth between the past and the present. I forget. Oh, time jumping. That's what it was, right? Time jumping.
yeah.
Um, and like once you saw that, like we were now in that period of time when he had time jumped to the future, and you know that X5 is on the loose, running around the TVA, helping out Renslayer and Miss Minutes. And I thought maybe could it be X5? Uh, could it be somebody else? I don't know. So I do agree with you because that's something that we talked about earlier in the season too. Is like who are our biggest guesses for who prunes Loki? And I know that one of the first things we said was it's probably Loki. Um, so if it had been a different character, I definitely would have, I think, enjoyed it more. But you know,
I don't know. It's overall, I want to see how you feel. Is I feel like there's I don't know. Are you enjoying the story that's being told? Is it exciting you? Is it surprising you, or is it just I enjoy these characters and I enjoy the environment that they're operating in, And so I'm pleased by the story just to watch these episodes and enjoy them.
I think more the latter. Like I'm enjoying the characters and like I'm going along with the story that they're telling. Um, my enjoyment level of season one, I think was way above this so far. And obviously, we're like talking about an incomplete season. We're 2/3 of the way through, but I think I would say that the latter option there is like I'm more enjoying the characters than I am the story itself. um, yeah, I don't know.
I think that it's, I guess, the difference between like the first film in a trilogy, say, or however many they're going to be, and like a sequel, where it's usually, especially with superhero films, they're setting up whatever the status is. You're telling the origin of this character, or whatever the status quo is, and that's pretty much what the first film is. And so those are usually okay, but I'm always more excited about the second film, where once everything's established, we don't have to worry about explaining anything to you. Now we can just go crazy and tell really fun stories with all these cool characters or this cool status quo that we introduced to you in the first film. And this one, it feels like I enjoyed the first season because it was just like showing me all these cool ideas and these concepts and how the TVA worked. And I was like, yeah. So part of me is thinking like season two, great. Now we're going to take these and really run with it. And now I just feel like this season's just a little smaller and less crazy than I was hoping it might be, given everything that
Yeah.
could be used.
Right, right. I mean, and I don't want to, jump around too much, but like I think something along those lines is even the fact that like we got a moment in this episode, in episode 4, where like they turned the power dampeners off so that Loki and Sylvie could use their powers in the TVA, and it felt like we didn't really get anything from that. They used it for a brief moment, and it was like I don't know. I guess I just expected once they were there and able to actually use their full powers, I expected something crazy to happen that they were gonna have a direct hand in, and like they definitely used it, and we'll get into that and everything. But like it wasn't as like as exciting as I had hoped or expected it to be. Once they're now they're back at full power.
And one last question I'll ask you before we get into the nitty gritty of it. Do you feel that this season is happening too fast? Or is it because I feel like there are points in these stories where we are just racing to the next beat. And I feel like there's like some meat on those bones in between each of those beats that I think I would like to see. But how do you feel? Do you feel like I'm good with kind of the rapid pace we're kind of making our way through story beats?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with like a quicker pace for some things, but I do agree that it feels like it's very uneven. Where it's like there are points where we shouldn't speed through certain things or conversations or scenes, but it's I would lean towards it feels like we're kind of moving too fast through some of this stuff and not really letting the important stuff really marinate.
Uh, well, folks, we'll jump right into it here. And we start off the episode with Victor Timely. He's making his way back to the TVA, coming through looking cool. And kind of a fish out of water, so to speak. He's kind of it's like to be in this place that he'd always kind of read about and fantasized about, but now actually to be walking in the halls of the TVA, it's kind of taking him back and kind of like, which understandably, John, if I was dropped into some place I'd always dreamed about, I'd be like, whoa, what's this? What's that? What's that? This is cool.
Yeah, especially when your face is everywhere. Like he gets there, like seeing all this for the first time, and the first like one of the first things he sees is that wall with "He Who Remains" face, on it in the different, in facing different ways. Um, I can't even imagine like the shock that you'd feel like this place where this TVA handbook that I've had my whole life and didn't really know what it all meant really. Like now I'm actually here and I'm seeing my face everywhere. Like I clearly built this place. So yeah, it was, and that's what I think too. Like I appreciated his performance as Victor Timely in this episode more than I did in the last episode. I felt like it was a much better performance this time around.
I agree. I thought it was much more calibrated, where it could be that he could have his little odd moments of eccentricity, but it wasn't so overwhelming that you're like, what is going on? So I wish that this performance had been what we had seen in the previous episode, because I think I would have just really been more dialed into like enjoying that character more than being so like so off put from him by the third episode that it really needed to work me over to kind of get me back on board to being like, oh, all right, I'm digging him in this episode.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, and so I mean, in terms of the grand scheme of things, there's only a few beats that really happen in this episode, and the big thing is trying to get Victor Timely down to Ouroboros and have them help to try to fix whatever is happening with the time loom, so they can get that all set. But it does get that nice moment where I'm glad we took a breather to see OB and Victor Timely meet and want each other to autograph their TVA manuals.
That this was one of my favorite parts of the whole episode, when they got to meet each other, because I wasn't sure, like, Ouroboros is obviously very smart, very important to the TVA, but like I didn't know if he had a name. Like I didn't know if he knew of a Victor Timely. But I knew that Victor Timely would know who Ouroboros was because it's his name on the TVA handbook. It's his picture in the book. So like to have that moment where they're both standing there and Ouroboros is saying like, yeah, everything that I know, I learned from Victor Timely. And Victor Timely's like, everything I learned from Ouroboros. And it's like, and we even had that moment where it was OB was like, oh, it's like a snake eating its tail, because that's literally the symbol. Like that's like this was a great scene. I thought I really loved this one.
It does make it interesting though, because they made a big point in episode 3 to show that we were on the sacred timeline until Victor Timely got the manual from Renslayer. And then when we jump at 30 years ahead, we're in a branch timeline. So, I am assuming that Victor Timely at some point on the sacred timeline always gets the manual or gets some foreknowledge of his future to be able to create all this stuff.
Yeah, that sounds right. This is where I get a little confused about some of this stuff. But yeah, that's what I would guess.
Because I mean, everybody's sharing the Victor Timely name. I'm thinking like, all right, maybe where he gets it is what creates the different branches. I don't know.
I guess it is. That is like the Nexus event, right? I guess that's what would create that other branch, I guess. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. So
I'm just spitballing about Nexus events. Who knows?
I know. I have no idea.
But as as Loki and Mobius are trying to tell everybody about B-15, it's like, hey, Renslayer is coming. She's somewhere. They don't know that Sylvie kind of banished her to the end of time, which we do see. And I appreciated that we weren't dragging out whatever the secret is that Miss Minutes was going to tell her. I don't know. Were you satisfied with the reveal that we got?
I don't know. It was one of those things that like you see it and it's like, oh, that's where that recording came from. But it didn't like blow my mind. It was like, I know that these people are all having their memories wiped and their memories erased. Like this wasn't really a big shock to me. So like hearing the recording was cool because again it like connects it back to the beginning of the season where it's like, oh, that's something I had been thinking about the whole time. Loki hears this recording of Ravonna and He Who Remains. It sounds like they're very close, have a very close relationship, maybe an intimate relationship. They obviously care about each other very much. And then like to learn that the ending of that recording was just Ravonna getting her mind wiped, like I was like, I don't know. Like I understand why she is pissed. I understand why that leads her to now do everything that she's going to do. But like it wasn't super satisfying for me, I feel like, as a viewer. I don't know.
Yeah, it's what I mean, and I guess I maybe equating it to soap operas or other series where there's a secret. And secrets can be held from both characters and the audience, or just a character in the audience already knows what the secret is. But the enticing thing is seeing what the audience gets excited about, seeing how the character is going to react to learning this secret. Which, if you've already kind of established and had other people reacting to, learning that their minds were wiped, I feel like that kind of diminishes or dilutes the interest in seeing Renslayer to learn about that. Because like we've already seen other people react to it, and I guess some people in the TVA kind of freaked out a little bit, but nothing too crazy. And then we get Renslayer, who just takes it as and maybe it's on top of it that she was like kind of a partner with Victor Timely. Maybe that was more the betrayal, not so much that memory was wiped, but that she was really the power behind the throne, so to speak. And then, timely just kind of kicked her to the curb.
Yeah, I guess that was like a new thing, right? Like I knew that she was high up in the TVA and had, was accomplished, but I didn't realize that she was like leading the armies in this previous multiversal war and everything that they had fought. Like I didn't realize that she was like a full on like army commander. Um, we saw her as a judge, right? At one point, like we see like we've seen her in high up positions. So like to learn that you played such a crucial part in forming this place that you've just been slaving away at and having your mind wiped. Like I could understand why she was super pissed, and why she went on to do the rest of the things that we saw her do in this episode.
It's just me learning that where Kang couldn't do what he could have done without having the help of Renslayer or whoever else, may have helped support him through this whole thing. I don't know. I feel like it kind of diminishes Kang as like a big bad to me. Like, sure, Thanos had, the Obsidian Order, and he had Gamora, and he had Nebula doing stuff for him, but you had no doubt that Thanos was doing it, and it was simply because he just was like, it wasn't because he needed the help. It was like, I just don't feel like doing it. You go run this errand for me.
Right.
I could totally do it and crush everything, but I just don't want to. And it just feels like
Yeah.
with Kang, it's like they keep setting it up where he just seems like lamer and lamer to me as this keeps going on in the MCU.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with this. It's totally different with Thanos. There was never a moment when he was sending people out to do dirty work for him that you felt like, oh, Thanos needs these people. It was just Thanos keeps these people around to do these things because he can't be bothered. Like he's worried about other stuff. Like there's still no question about who's in charge and who's the big bad. Like I don't know. I feel like every time, I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but like I feel like every time that we see Kang or He Who Remains so far, I'm just like not very impressed. Like, I'm very underwhelmed. Like I can't get bought into this as like the next big villain that we're gonna have in the MCU at this point. Like I don't know when that's gonna switch, if they have plans to somehow fix this or whatever. But like right now, I don't know. Maybe we need a lesser villain though, because I don't know who the Avengers are that we have left. So
That's
we had
true.
all the A team had a hard enough time with Thanos.
I mean, it is interesting where it's just, if you only listen to the publicity of Marvel building up Kang, he's going to be the next big threat that they have to face. You're like, ooh, exciting. Yet everything that they're showing us in any of their films or TV shows just seems to work towards diminishing Kang at this point. So like, you're telling me one thing, but you're showing me another. And it seems those two just don't quite line up for me at the moment.
Right. Because I feel like when we first met He Who Remains, and that's like the first version of Kang that we're seeing, like like our expectations in that season 1 finale of Loki, I feel like we're already low for that specific variant of Kang, because he even was saying, he was like, I'm keeping everything in check here. If you kill me, all the other variants of me will start coming, and they're a lot worse than I am. So like you kind of got set up for being like, all right, this is Kang, but we're not seeing really the strongest version of it. And it's like now we're starting to see a couple other versions of Kang throughout the MCU, and it's like these guys seem worse than He Who Remains. Like not in a good way either. Like worse in that they're weaker. like what do you mean? Like I thought that He Who Remains was supposed to be the weakest. Like.
Well, we do see that with Renslayer on the prowl, B-15 has an idea. It's like, hey, we know Renslayer's coming. We need some support because you look at us, we're already kind of falling apart here. Why don't we talk to X5 and Docs and see if we can get all those folks to help us out? Because even though we may not be on the same page, we all still care about the TVA in and of itself. Right. So yeah, shows we see a nice scene with B-15 trying to convince X5 and Docs to join, and Docs doesn't give her an answer there, but doesn't completely close the door to the idea either, which was nice to see a little bit more of her thought process and her as a character than I think we've got in all this so far this season.
Yeah, I liked Docs in this episode. Which, like, for what we get in a little while, I have a whole other opinion about how Docs gets handled later. But I enjoyed this moment from Docs, and like even the conversation between her and X5, when X5 was like, they're just gonna use us until they need us, and then they're gonna prune us. That's how they're gonna do it. And hearing Doc say, and like Docs and B-15 were so at odds earlier in the season, and so to have Doc sitting there in the room now saying like, me and B-15, we might not agree on everything, but if there's one thing I know about her, like she has integrity. Like that was a big moment. Like that was a clear, nice arc for Docs, like that we've gotten in this season. Even though she did unspeakable things, as that we saw, bombing all these timelines and killing how many people, who knows, but like, it was nice to see that moment of growth from her at this point in the season, at least.
Yeah, and maybe that's, I guess, true to so many situations in life where somebody that has done horrible things has a tough time trusting that somebody else would not just immediately do those horrible things to them. So X5 thinking like, oh, they're just going to prune us. Like, well, no, they could have pruned you when they captured you all, but they didn't. They put collars on you and stuck you in the confinement, but nobody's been pruning you yet. So, should extend some goodwill for B-15's offer. But
yeah, I do like X5, like the actor. I like the actor that portrays X5 and Brad. But I was a little bit like, man, you're really like this still distrusting of people like B-15 and Mobius. Like they could have crushed you in that box first. They didn't. And obviously they needed information out of you, but then they got that information. They found Sylvie, they found Docs and stopped her, and they still didn't just kill you. You're still alive. You know what I mean? They're not trying to like kill you. Like, so like the fact that he's still so stubborn and like fighting, like, oh yeah, B-15 is just gonna prune us all. It's like, no, you would have been dead already if they wanted to kill you, man. Like, come on.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like again, this is where like the plot in certain aspects of the show or a character's arcs are accelerated rapidly, and other story points aren't. Where I feel like X5, like so much of like his change happened off camera, where I mean, all we get is just like maybe like a concerned look when Doc's is like, yeah, we're gonna do all this, to cut to he's already back in the past and he's already an action movie star in the late 70s, and he's loving his life there, and now he never wants to go back. And so now to see what his motivations are for wanting to side with Renslayer when she arrives in the containment room to try to sway Docs and everybody else in that room to join her. Like X5's like the only one that's like, heck yeah, I'm on board. Screw the TVA. I don't know. How are you feeling about like X5's arc? Do you buy like where he's going here? It's like, well, because I feel like I'm missing extra details in there to make me really invested in him.
Right. No, I think it's moving a little too fast. I will say that I think I can buy it, because when I watch these things, even if I feel like it is rushed, I feel like I can sit there and think in my head, like, all right, this is what X5 has been through. This is where he went. He found his life on the timeline. He got captured, and then like, so if I think about it logically, I can see how he ended up here. But like, I feel like I shouldn't have to do that in my head. Like, I'd rather see it play out on the screen. So like, I think Loki's the type of show that would really benefit from like 8 episode seasons rather than 6, because if you take literally just like 15 minutes, of getting to see some of X5 becoming Brad and becoming that actor, and then getting captured, and then seeing how he gets to the mindset of like, siding with Renslayer, and then even other characters, like you could have more of a conversation between Loki and Sylvie about some of this stuff, because I feel like a lot of that has jumped around and been too like kind of fast too, and we haven't seen enough details about like where they are at right now. I feel like if you add all that up, you can get another episode or two, you know what I mean, and it makes the story much more like it just makes it feel like the story would flow much more. And I feel like they probably have a lot of this kind of footage already that's just been cut out that we're not seeing, and it's like, I don't know. Do they only have the budget for this much, or like do they think that people don't want 8 episodes? Because as far as I know, Loki is like the most popular post Endgame project that Marvel has done, pretty much. So it's like you would think they'd want to invest more into a project like this. That's unfortunately, and I love Marvel, but some of the projects haven't done as well since the main Infinity Saga, and it's like, So the stuff that is doing really well, give us more. Give us 8 episodes for season 2 of Loki. Why not? People loved season 1. And I think it would have then fill in some of these gaps that we're talking about now with like, all right, I can kind of see how this character got here, but I would love to have actually seen how it happened, the conversations that were had along the way, the things that happened, like, I don't know.
Yeah, because you're right. Because I mean, we've all, I'm sure anybody watching this after show or listening to it, anybody that has just consumed mass amounts of any kind of story, whether it's superheroes, science fiction, whatever, there are, the story arc is not unfamiliar, but and you're right. But I'm bummed that we have to do we gotta do some of the heavy lifting for Marvel for that.
Yeah.
It's like if it's I'd rather see more of that stuff than just be, then I have to just assume like, oh well, I know what that was about. But what are we gonna do? I'm so sad. So Renslayer makes her pitch to Dox and the crew, and only X5's on board. And so Miss Minutes is like, all right, enough of waiting around. We're just going right to the box.
God.
And we get to see the box going. It crushes everybody else in the room.
I just couldn't stop looking at Miss Minutes. That creepy smile.
Oh yes, she was all in. She was all in.
I obviously I knew that Miss Minutes was like a psychotic AI being before, but this really just put it over the top. That the pure enjoyment of watching people just getting crushed alive was disturbing. Absolutely, that was one of the scariest things I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. And we even when B-15 goes in, we never get a cutaway to see just how grisly it would have looked to see everybody just squashed into a little small pulp of stuff. But it is a goner in there.
I was really bummed, honestly. I thought that the way it seemed like Docs seemed to be coming around a little bit, and the way she stood up to Renslayer, like that line was great. That how does it feel that everybody here would rather die than join you? Like that was just such a great line. But like I was so bummed. I was like, because I'm blanking on the name now, but like the actress that plays Docs, like fantastic performer. Obviously, a huge star in Game of Thrones. Like played an absolutely unhinged character. Liza Aaron in Game of Thrones. And I honestly hoped that she would have stuck around longer. I felt like right when I was ready to see more of her, like I couldn't stand her when the season started, but it's because she was giving such a great performance, and like we were supposed to hate her. And just as like I'm starting to now be like, all right, I kind of want to see what Docs is going to do next. Nope, never mind. Sorry, she's crushed.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So much for her future in the TVA.
Yeah,
which is a bummer. But she's not the only one that we see get killed. We also get to see, and I can't remember his name, but kind of B-15's right-hand man.
Yeah.
He gets taken out while he and Victor Timely are having a little fun at the hot cocoa machine.
Yeah.
I guess at least he get to enjoy some delicious hot cocoa before he gets pruned.
This was like actually a kind of a weird scene too. Like the looks between him and Victor Timely, and like the way he handed him the hot cocoa and he took a sip and Victor Timely snapped. Like there was something like kind of weird about this scene, and then it just ends with him getting pruned.
Yeah.
And I rolled my eyes so hard at X5 when he prunes the guy and then goes, "I'm sorry." I'm like, "Oh, get out of here, man!" As if you don't have a choice right now. Like, really?
Yeah, and I find it hard about it. Like that guy has been in there for who knows how long, and he's never tried the hot chocolate or
Right.
chocolate soup, as they call it.
Yeah, that was weird. It was like you've probably been here for thousands of years. like, like you've never had hot cocoa from this machine before.
So Renslayer and Miss Minutes, they start taking over the TVA, kind of shutting down everybody out of these systems, which leads us back into episode 1, where we see why Loki is running around frantically trying to find stuff as Sylvie is isolated from Loki in the elevator. And we get to see who actually pruned Loki while this telephone is ringing. And we find out it was Loki pruning himself, which I don't know. I felt like the show wanted it to be more like, aha. And I'm like, but we already kind of knew this. So what was, I don't know. That was kind of a bummer. And then I was underwhelmed by being OB on the phone because it didn't really, it's like, you guys, it took you long enough to answer the phone. Like, okay. I mean, I guess it was set up as something like really cryptic and weird in episode 1. And now to just
Right.
find out, it's just like, where have you guys been? You gonna get
Yeah.
done?
Right. Like, I don't know. Like, not that this would have even been that much more exciting, but I actually was hoping that it was like Loki calling the phone to make sure that the other Loki was in place at the right time to get like pruned by somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, it was just kind of
Yeah.
like that's kind of what I was thinking it might turn out to be, but it was like the complete opposite. It was just Loki pruning himself, and then Obi on the phone be like, "What's taking so long?" It's like we have waited all season for these two reveals, and they were both kind of like a nothing.
Yeah. And we even prior to that, we do get a scene with Sylvie and Loki in the pie room. Because Sylvie is just once again, we're kind of talking about why Sylvie's so frustrated about everything. And Loki kind of sharing why he's thinking it's a good thing to be helping the TVA, because not everything, the TVA itself might be corrupt, but the people within it are not all of them, and so they deserve a chance to try to fix uh, this thing because they're the best people that could.
Yeah, yeah. I liked this scene. I also really one of the things we got in this scene too that I liked, and I've liked these moments throughout the season, is when Loki will bring up like Thor and his family. I feel like it shows a lot of growth for Loki, like how he maybe would do things differently now if he had the chance and things like that. Like I don't know, that whole thing has been interesting. Like you could tell he really misses his brother. He really misses Thor. You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of a cool thing to see to me. But like at the same time, in this conversation, the way it ended when Sylvie was like, "So what? We're just gonna play God," and then Loki saying, "We are gods." That almost felt a little sinister to me. Like I feel like you're seeing in the same scene like growth from Loki, like with the way he talks about Thor now as compared to back in the MC, the MCU movies when they were coming out, and then to have that still little sinister side though of like Loki still wants to play God though, like he still wants to have some control and some power here. So I don't know, that was like an interesting little moment too for me in that scene.
Uh, well, they decided to do a total shutdown and a restart of the TVA to be able to lock out missed minutes. And they do that, but that would also mean, as we were saying, it would turn off the magic dampeners. To which Loki's over here, yes, do that, turn it all off. And as you were saying, like we didn't really get to see much magic, but what we did see is Sylvie doing her big thing on X5 and putting him under her spell, and he comes in and just prunes Renslayer. Boom. And I'm like, I mean, that can't be the end of Renslayer. That can't be, because I feel like it was just. I mean, part of me would be impressed that it was handled so nonchalantly, because they don't make a big deal of it. It was just like boom, and you're gone. So I appreciated that. I just don't know if the show would do that. I don't know. Do you think it was too nonchalant? Were you excited that it was so nonchalant?
Yeah, I mean an exciting moment, but I agree with you. I'm not really sure if that's the end of Renslayer. Like it's like, could it really be that easy? Like
Yeah.
again, I won't have a problem with it if it is, but I can't buy that that's the last we're seeing of her. Um, but I thought this was a great scene. I loved how, the second that X5 pops his head in the way he did, like around the door, and he goes, "This is cozy." I'm like, Sylvie. That's Sylvie right now. I thought this was like a really well done scene.
It was cool. And what they were able to do though is they were able to get Victor Tomley out of there, and they get him back down to the control room, and they have to they use his temporal aura to be able to open the blast doors, and they realize like, holy cow, this is even further along than we thought. We do Earlier in the episode, we did see a really nice Back to the Future homage where Obi had set up the mock scale display of diorama of how this would all go down, using exact lines from it's like, oh, I'm sorry, it's not to scale, and I didn't have where he's just referencing Doc Brown. and him building those little models to show Marty stuff. So I did appreciate that. But we get to see Victor Timely. He kind of mans up and decides, I'll do the walk.
Yeah. Um, I was surprised. I liked this moment, but I enjoyed the line too. Like, it's time to be brave. I enjoyed that. Like, it looks like he's really trying to show people that whoever they think he is, that they're so scared of, it's really not him. He's a team player. Like, I thought this was a well done scene. And also about the little diorama thing, I also just had to say that I loved the back and forth between Mobius and Loki about who the little figurine actually was.
Yeah. Oh, clearly that's Loki doing the walk in there. Oh, this is me.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, just give me more of Mobius and Loki just kind of, bickering with each other about really tiny, things about like who's going to be doing what. Great, great. Or what fate is worse than the other. I'm always down for that stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
But we do see that there's so much temporal energy, much more than when Mobius made his walk. That everybody's worried, like, can Victor Timely do it? And as much as like Obi really sets out, you just got to race down to there, drop it in, fire it off at the temporal, the temporal loom, and we're all set. Like the way that whole setup with the suit and the huge long umbilical cord attaching it, it is just it's not built for speed in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
You just got to race down there and then race back. Like, that's impossible, Obi. That is impossible given how this is built. There's no way. Please
right.
Don't tell me to. Because I can't.
Well, and when the whole that whole room was still dangerous when Mobius was in it, and you saw how slow he was moving, it was like, and he barely made it back. Like, he barely made it back under much better conditions. Like, under what in what world is anyone possibly going to be able to accomplish this? that's how I felt. Like, once those those shields opened and you saw what like the loom actually looked like out there, I was like, I don't know about this. I don't know. And maybe, and this is where I also was thinking, like, is there a way that Loki and Sylvie could use their magic to accomplish this by building some kind of shield around them so they could get down there and get, you know what I mean? Like once, it felt like a big deal that like these dampeners were going to go down so that Loki and Sylvie could use their magic again. And I felt like maybe this is a moment where they're going to do it to help save the day. And Loki was about to go out there, and we got Victor Timely, to go out and volunteer for it, whatever. But I don't know, that was like a moment where I was like, maybe we'll get some magic here. That'll save everything, but clearly we did not get that.
Well,
yeah.
If by magic you mean seeing a man turn into kind of cosmic spaghetti, we did get that. Yeah. Victor Timely races out there thinking he's going to save the day and immediately just gets zapped, and he's just shredded apart. And that's it. Adios, Victor Timely, and adios the loom, which just blows up. And we get to see it kind of overtake the control room, and we just go to black. So who knows what we get in store for the next 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, I was reading something with the director where he was saying, or the showrunner, where he was saying, like, that was the point. Like, we knew that the whole big loom exploding thing, sure, we could have saved that until the end of the last episode of the season. But it's like, if you've got that, it's got to explode. So why not we do it faster? And then we can kind of see what happens past that, which I like the idea in theory, but I also feel like, man, you're right, John, like an 8-episode season would, I feel like, give this story a little bit more breathing room to just make it a little bit more, like, make all the little beats a little bit more developed so that everything would have just a more of an impact throughout the story.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think 8 episodes would be even honestly, even 7 episodes. I know it's a weird odd number, but like, and I feel that way with a lot of these shows sometimes, and that's why I feel like it has to come down to money, right, and budgets and all that. Like it's just they do the best they can with what they have, but I feel like there are some conversations where just an extra couple of minutes would help. Certain scenes where a few minutes here or there would help, and it's like when you add it all up, it really only comes down to 1 or 2 episodes more that you would need. And I feel like I was saying, like, especially with Loki, which seems to be the most popular of all the Marvel projects, I feel like you'd want to concentrate that, those resources to the most popular project that's going on. Because that's where all the eyeballs are. Um, just to make the story more fully developed and just feel smoother and more, more rich.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, and who knows how the rest of the film slate of the MCU is going to be progressing. But I would think if you have Loki, who's so intimately involved right now with the activities of the TVA, that when this starts happening, bleeding more into the film side of stuff, which it will. I mean, we have Deadpool 3, we've got supposedly the Marvels might deal a little in with that, and other stuff that's going to be coming up in the future. That I feel like you got to see Loki back on the big screen.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like a reunion between him and Thor is going to happen at some point.
Right. Yeah. I was reading something recently too that was like speculating, like, will there be a Loki season 3 or will there not be? And like what I had read was that, the plan is to continue the Loki story into the movies and other MCU projects, like you were saying. But that this particular story was always looked at as season 1 and season 2 being one book, one story. And so they want to wrap this up in season 2, but that doesn't mean it'll be the end of these characters in this story, as they'll be part of other MCU projects moving forward. Not to say that there wouldn't be a Loki season 3, but it'll be a new story then. Like, this story is going to end at this season and will only continue if it's done in other movies or other projects. So yeah, and I agree. Like, I'm at this point too, with how much Thor has come up in this season of Loki. Like, I'm dying for a Thor and Loki reunion on the big screen.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Yeah, because I mean, I feel like, but I will be very curious because it's like, yes, the story is closing, but the TVA is not closing. We're going to be seeing that in other projects coming ahead. So it'll be interesting to like, I mean, I can understand like we're closing the book on the story. I mean, I guess it maybe is Loki's relationship with the TVA is the kind of thing that's closing. And so when we see him past this, it's not going to be any time TVA kind of connection. I don't know.
yeah,
But I'd be
yeah.
robbed of that because I want to see Mobius with him on the big screen.
I'm telling you, Mobius is like Coulson 2.0. Like, we need more Mobius, and he needs to be part of like these MCU movies. Like,
Yeah.
Mobius needs to be like part of the support team for the Avengers, like the new Avengers that we get. Loki will bring him in, like no, and even B-15. B-15 could be I really like B-15. I would
Yeah.
love to see B-15 and more stuff. Casey, OB, bring all these guys into the bigger
Heck yes.
MCU world. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't tease us with these guys. If you're going to show them, yeah, I mean, let's see them continue on. You've spent I mean, I feel like that's the thing. If you spend seasons with characters, unless you're killing them off, like you've created them, let's put them to use in other TV shows or films.
Yeah. I do now that we're talking about this too, I do have like a small fear. Like, I want to see Mobius in these projects going forward, but I don't know about Owen Wilson's schedule. He's an interesting one. Like, I'm scared to death now. I only just thought about it right now, but I'm literally horrified that like Mobius could end up dying by the end of the season or something like that. Never get his ride on the jet ski, like
Let's not think like that, John. Let's not think like that. I mean, he doesn't have any. I mean, he's a guy. It's just a kind of like a really casual suit. So there's no big, costumes he's got to worry about. No big special effects. He's not a huge player in in the grand scheme of things. So his time would not be. It would be so much time that it'd be like, oh, that's going to eat up so much time if I'm in all these other movies. Like, no, you could do it. You could do it, Owen. We
That's
can
true.
fit you in, and you can
Yeah.
do your thing.
I don't think that they would want to kill Mobius off. I just think that, knowing Owen Wilson, he's a pretty big movie star, right? So I could see, if anyone in this show is going to die that we love, I could see it being Owen Wilson, just because of his status as an actor, not because of not because we don't want to keep Mobius around. But I'm going to stop thinking that way. Mobius will long live Mobius. There you go.
I mean, the only thing I could think of is if that happens and it's Kang or some variant of him that is directly responsible for it. So then that's how we follow him into the films, where he's on a vendetta to destroy Kang, and then that's when he runs into Thor. And
Yeah.
he's manipulating everybody to help him get revenge on Kang. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. And then maybe
Uh,
Loki finds a variant of Mobius, and then Owen Wilson, he decides, oh, my schedule freed up, so I'll be in the
that's
next.
I don't like pie. I like cake. That's how I'm a variant.
Yeah, I like cake and rowboats, not pie and jet skis.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we record this, it is Halloween, and the ghosts and goblins are, they're waiting for us to go out there and see what kind of frights await us. So we're gonna pull this Loki season 2, episode 4, Heart of the TVA recap to a close. But thank you for joining us, everybody, and for those of you that joined us on the stream on the YouTube, sharing your thoughts and comments. And again, you can never ask John Dunphy too many questions. He lives to answer not just Loki questions or reality competition show questions, but just general life questions. That's what he's here for.
That's right.
Yes. And folks, this is all done thanks to JLJ Media and the one, the only, that can never be imitated nor duplicated, James Lott Jr. So make sure you're following GLJ Media on all the socials to see all the cool other shows that they've got, as well as classes and everything that you might want to get involved with to learn about your favorite pop culture things, or if you're just learning to learn about some life stuff. James Lott Jr.'s got it all dialed in for you here on GLJ Media. But if you want to stay in touch with me, you don't want to. You can find me at Happy Go Jackie on all the social media. But the more important person to follow, if you're not already, and shame on you if you've been listening to us on all these variety of recap shows and have yet to follow this man, John Dunphy, where can they find you?
Find me at JDunn89 on all social media platforms. That's my personal. And if you like reality TV, shows, follow at Strat Chat. That's strategy, but shortened to Strat Chat Pod on all social media platforms. Talk about Big Brother, Survivor, The Challenge, all that stuff. So come hang out.
5-second tease, John. How are you enjoying the latest season of The Challenge? The idea of introducing some, as they like to call it, fresh meat.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I'm glad that they have found a way to bring in a lot of the new blood, because there's a lot of new players, but they've pretty much all played at least one version of the challenge, either on MTV or CBS, like Challenge USA, or one of the international versions like Challenge UK or Australia. So they found a way to bring in all new people, so we're guaranteed to have a new challenge champion. But some of your favorites are still there. The vets, they've been brought in as like mercenaries for the eliminations. Guys like CT, Laurel, Darrell, some of like the old school challenge people. So you've got like a mixture of both, but guaranteed to have like a new champ this year. So really exciting season, I think.
I mean, I do not know if anything will top so many seasons ago of CT just lifting Bananas onto his back and just walking him off the course.
It's the banana.
Was
Yeah,
one of the best. That was
the
phenomenal.
banana backpack.
Yeah.
CT wore Johnny Bananas like a backpack.
Yep. I just walked him out. Just walked him out. That was it.
Yeah.
It was. I don't think anything would top that.
No, that was one of the greatest moments in challenge history.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if it's still Halloween for you while you're watching this, go out and enjoy the rest of your evening. But if you're listening to us later, I hope you had a great, lots of tricks, maybe a few treats, or maybe lots of treats and just a few tricks, whichever way you like it, the ball to roll for you. But I hope you enjoyed your Halloween, and we will see you back here next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific time, for episode 5, the Look